You always assume you will remember vividly the day, the time, the date. Was it a Thursday or a Sunday? You assume you will remember, have burned into your unconsciousness the big pivotal moments in your life, the important things like where you were when Challenger blew up, or when Flight 175 hit the South Tower. The way that my parents always remember exactly where they were when John F. Kennedy was shot, or Bobby was murdered, or King was slaughtered, or Malcolm was executed. You assume that the big moments leave emotional forensics behind, but sometimes they just don't. To this day, I cannot tell you when it was that I woke up, walked into the bathroom, looked into a mirror, and saw my dead eyes staring back at me. Staring at me from the mirror. A mirror that had been mine for over a decade and had never not shown me what I expected to see, which was me. Because what else do you see when you look into a mirror? But this mirror that had seen me through many a day and night, that morning, or was it afternoon? That day, what I saw was a body that had been abandoned by whatever it was that makes us live. I looked to see myself dead, skin grayed out, my eyes vacant of awareness. And the person I thought I was, the remnants of myself, the things that made me, were gone. The longer I looked, strangely, the less terrified I became. And I thought, here we are, and there I am, and we are dead. And this is coming for us. I was simultaneously relieved and more terrified than I had been ever in my life, and I realized that I was out of whiskey, and that was not okay. But then again, it was. Because I did not want to drink. I didn't want to, but I had to. So I took a painful, fearsome shower and got slowly dressed, terrorized by my own shoes. And I stood at the top of my stairs on the 3rd floor of an old Victorian, and I realized that I was dizzy and shaky and not sure that I would make it to the bottom of the stairs in one piece, because that 3 flights of stairs suddenly appeared to me a mountain turned upside down. So I crouched and half slid and half crawled, laughing down the stairs. And I made it out and around the corner to the local Irish pub. I told the bartender I thought that maybe I was coming down with something, and she clucked empathetically, her imported Irish accent making the offer of a hot toddy seem like the best idea ever. And so 3 hot toddies later, I felt less like I was about to fall down, but I couldn't stop shaking and wondering when the mirror truth would manifest. I called a friend and I described my symptoms, and she said I needed to go to the hospital right now. So I did. And I promised myself I would tell the doctor that I was an alcoholic because they would ask, right? All the intake I've ever had in my life always include them asking, do you use drugs, street drugs, alcohol? How much do you drink? Do you think you have a problem? Do you think you need help? I mean, I have been asked those questions when going in just for a pelvic examination, for fuck's sake. I promised myself I would tell the doctor. And when a doctor showed up, he never asked. He asked me about my drug use and my sexual habits. Did I use pills? Did I smoke pot? And in my head, I was screaming, please, please, please ask me. Please ask me if I drink. I can't say it on my own. Please, please ask me, and I will tell you, yes, I am an alcoholic, and yes, I need help. And he never asked, not once. And I couldn't say it, not once. After 12 hours of blood work and lung scans and many, many bags of intravenous fluid, I was discharged with some blood pressure medication. And I was told, well, your potassium levels are a little high, but your organ function looks good. And you were severely hydrated, and that can really mess you up, so take care. I walked out of San Francisco General. I walked over to 24th Street and I looked for a liquor store. And nothing was open because it was 7:40 a.m. So I stood on the corner for 20 long fucking minutes. And at 8 a.m., the door opened from the inside. I was shaking so badly and hurting all over, I couldn't see, really. I asked the clerk for a pint of Jack Daniels. I took it in my hand, the black plastic bag shrouding it from the prying eyes of someone who might not be so accepting of seeing someone drinking whiskey at 8:03 a.m. But around the corner, I sat down on a stoop. I unscrewed the cap. I drank it. Maybe a third of the bottle in 5 beautiful, long, burning seconds. The next third, more slowly, and by the time I had finished the bottle, I felt fine. Great, in fact. The pain was gone. My head had cleared. I could see again. I took a breath. I stood up, gliding down the street, sauntering even. I washed down my blood pressure medication with the dregs of the bottle and sailed down 24th Street, smiling and crying because I knew that this was it. I was walking, but I had died. I was dying. I would be dead, and very soon, if I did not stop. I walked over from the Mission District to my friend's house in Bernal Heights. I let myself into her house with my spare key, and when Julie walked out, very confused as to why I was on her couch at 8:30 in the morning, because I am not a morning person, you see. I looked at her and I said, I need help. Please. I'm a drunk. I'm an alcoholic. I can't stop. I'm gonna die if I don't stop, but I can't. And she said, yes, we will help you. And she cried and made phone calls. And we started figuring out how to save my life. Good morning. Good morning. You useless, pathetic, weak, sad loser. Sad, sad loser. Good morning. It's time for work, except, oh, it's not. Because you have managed to beautifully arrange your life so that all you have to do now is pretend to look for work. Fill out the forms, collect unemployment, and have enough to pay rent and get a fifth of Jack Daniels, for today at least. And get to writing that play, that novel. You're so lucky that you are good with words. Because being an artist means that you may well fold your misery into the works you create. Stir it in, pound it down, let the pain leaven the incessant sensation of worthlessness, the cerceration of hopelessness, the lift and rise of gorgeous loathing of self, delicious, abject humiliation soaked in 80-proof whiskey because we can. And this is a case where we should do it because we can, and that hole is not going to fill itself, but the beautiful burn of the whiskey that fills it, that stops the shaking, that quiets the screaming into a soft, velvety gray streaked with jagged shreds of a kaleidoscopic happy. A way to move through this foul, fetid, fucked fantasy of a world from which only one means of escape is ever possible. So, drink up. You've earned it. You deserve that quiet. You deserve to feel nothing but sweet, twisted, blinding, throttling freedom. Drink it, drink it, drink it, drink. We are stronger, dissolved in solution. We persist. Ethanol sacrament. We lift up our eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh our help. Our help comes from oblivion, benediction, intoxicating grace. How sweet the sound, how sweet the burn, the sting, the scent of venerable volatility, of high gravitas bruise, lowering inhibitions and erecting impenetrable walls on which we may beat our fists bloody, trying to tear them down, even as we build them from the bloody shards of the remnants and dust of our self-esteem. The chaff of pride that has been milled away, boiled to sour mash, fermented, aged to perfection in casks of self-loathing, drawn off, held up to the light, swirled, swished, sipped. The sensation of cessation. And we have become exactly as miserable, precisely as pathetic as we know we should be. So, finish that bottle of red wine because that's our breakfast for today. And tell yourself that's just fine. That's just fine. We are. It is really hard to shock healthcare professionals. Nurses and doctors see all kinds of shit every day. And so when you're applying for a detox and you're telling the story of how much you drink every day and the nurse's eyebrow starts twitching a little bit, you start to think, wow, I must be doing really well. And so I said, is that a lot? And she said, it is an unusual pattern for a female of your age. I was told that there were 2 beds in the detox that were available, and because I identified as female, and because the city of San Francisco was required to hold a certain number of beds in the detox for female-identified people, I was now eligible. And because it was the only free detox center on the entire West Coast, I was very excited. And so I said, how long is the wait? When will I be able to go? And she said, glancing behind me at the clock, the van is on the way. You will be going in 10 minutes. I didn't have any clothes. I didn't have anything. I had no idea that this was a process that would happen so quickly. And I said, can I at least go home and get my stuff? And she said, I'm sorry, Miss Williams, you stopped drinking 5 hours ago. You are at very high risk for DT seizures and possibly death. So we're taking you in right now. You really should not have stopped drinking. When I got to the rehab, I was ushered into the room where I would be sleeping and then taken over to the nurse's station where I was given a fistful of drugs and told to lie down, which they did not really have to tell me to do because that was pretty much all I wanted or could do. The drugs that they gave me to stop me from having seizures were drugs that were very, very exciting and fascinating to the girl next to me who was on detox from heroin. And Heroin Girl kept asking me, hey, what are you taking? Do you think you really need that? Because maybe you could just cheek it and hold it and then give it to me afterwards. I said, you know, this is rehab. I'm pretty sure that's gonna be against the rules. I went to sleep and I woke up, I don't know how much later, completely soaked. And I thought that maybe I had pissed in the bed, because that, of course, was a regular occurrence for me in my career as an alcoholic. This time it was actually just sweat. So I walked down to the nurse's station. I got a new pair of sheets. I put them down on the bed and woke up a half an hour later, soaked again in sweat. I didn't know how many times I was going to have to do this over the course of the night. They kept coming in to take my vital signs, so I couldn't sleep very well. I kept thinking, how much longer is it going to be this way? Probably about 2 or 4 in the morning, I woke up, and I really did have to pee this time, and I was soaked in sweat again. I wanted to get out of the bed, but I noticed that there was a bulge in the floor that had not been there before. And I thought, well, maybe the carpet had somehow gotten crimped up, but this was a wall-to-wall carpet. And now the bulge was larger. And I said, okay, I've heard about hallucinations when you're detoxifying. Maybe this is it. And as I lay there, watching the bulge grow larger and larger, I kept thinking, okay, you know, I have taken fistfuls of acid. I have been high as fuck, but I have never seen something that was not at all there, actually, at all, you know? And eventually the bulge grew to where it was higher than me on the bed. I wasn't sure what to do. I wanted to call out, but what was I going to say? Excuse me, my floor was bulging. It seemed like not quite maybe yet the time for that. And this was outside of my belief and outside of my experience. And I knew scientifically that the brain is capable of some amazing things, and I knew that reality is only a combination of input and output. And even as I was trying to reconcile the fact that this bulge in the floor may or may not really be there, but what is reality, really, for any of us? When the bulge started to crack open from the top, a collapsing soap bubble made of dirt. But this crumbling didn't reveal nothing. It revealed something. A large, hairy something. The arch of the back and the slope of the neck and the black glittering eyes and the oddly shaped ears that twitched to shake off a clump of dirt, and the muzzle that turned to face me, and I was face to face with a hyena. Breathing heavily, scented with the dust of the plains, hot and furious. She sat down on her haunches, shook her head, and looked over to me and said, "Hi. Hello. My name is Bubbles, and we need to leave. We need to go. You've made your point. You went into rehab. You showed them you can do it. But now you're taking things a little too far. I think we should leave. This is a voluntary program, isn't it? And wouldn't it be delicious right now, wouldn't it, to walk out of here? Wouldn't it? To walk down the street to the nearest bodega, wouldn't it? To put your $10 on the counter, wouldn't it? To get that fifth of Jack Daniels, wouldn't it? To feel the delicious obliteration of that gleaming, sparkling whiskey as it brings you back to where you need to be with us, back together with us, back together running and smiling and living the way we choose to live without pressure from all of these people who could never, ever understand. This is bullshit! Girl, you need to get the fuck up out of here. We need to go. We need to go. We need to go. If you could see thirst, if you could touch hunger, if you could taste rage, eyes infinite, teeth everlasting, together forever. Amen. Don't touch me. Don't. Pay attention now. Okay. You did it. You stopped drinking. You made the point. You cleaned out the house from all the shit. You earned the filth. Everyone knows you tried, but what's the point? What do you have to live for, really? Your family. They don't care about you, not really, and your being gone would be an amazing opportunity for them to close that filthy chapter in their lives. Your friends. Who's left? 4, maybe 6 people who pity you? They'll be sad. They'll wring their hands and say, "What could I have done?" And then they'll forget you. You'd be doing them a favor. The way to be a real friend right now would be to just remove yourself from this equation. And if you're too fucking chicken shit to finish the job neatly, you can always just drink again and get back on track. One of the things I did not know about alcohol detoxification is that it can kill you. Because, right, in movies, heroin withdrawal is the one that's made out to be the worst possible thing that you can go through as an addict. People will fuck themselves over for years and years and then balk on kicking heroin because shit, it's too much. The pain, the shakes, the nausea. But on my 5th day in rehab, once I was well enough to go to the, not really, voluntary 12-step meeting, my counselor told me that I was lucky to be alive. My counselor said that alcohol detox was the only cold turkey withdrawal that can and does kill. I told her, well, I knew how bad heroin was. She waved me off. Movies, drama. To myself, I thought, well, heroin needs a better PR rep. To my counselor, I said, I'm sorry, what? To me, my counselor said, suppose you take 100 heroin addicts, 100 crackheads, another 100 methamphetamine users, and 100 alcoholics, and you put them all on an island. To myself, I thought, Dr. Moreau would not do so well with that subject population. To myself, I thought, what is the law? To myself, I laughed. To my counselor, I said, oof, that would suck. To me, my counselor said, yes, it would. So, on this island of 400 people going cold turkey, if they were otherwise healthy, aside from being addicts, at the end of a week you'd have 100 cranky, sober meth heads, 100 tired, sober crackheads, 100 shaky, sober heroin addicts, and about 90 strung out, sober alcoholics, because roughly 10 of them will die from seizures if they detox cold turkey. To myself, I thought, I wonder why it's called cold turkey. I should Google that. To myself, I thought, it was probably really stupid of me to stop drinking the night before I came to rehab. To myself, we thought, in the endless chain of stupidity that is your miserable, fucked up existence, this isn't even in the top 5, you stupid fucking bitch. Hey, if you drop dead from seizures, at least you'd be out of your misery and out of everyone else's way and not sucking up valuable oxygen that would be better utilized by starving orphans in Africa. To myself, I thought, I kind of want a turkey sandwich right now. To my counselor, I said, wow. To me, my counselor said, yeah, wow. It's good that you're here. At least you have a chance. To myself, I thought, a chance? To what? To fuck up again and again? To myself, I thought, you don't even deserve that, but go ahead. Disappoint everyone one more time. Nobody is expecting you to get your shit together. To my counselor, I said, yes, thank you. May I use my cell phone, please? I suppose in a fancy rehab, you get massages and therapists on call and internet access and maybe even some privacy and, yeah, nutritious food and all the things that might help you feel like a human with dignity. Even though what you really are is a piece of shit addict. Please, do not think I'm being ungrateful when I say that poor folks' rehab is not that well provisioned. We had microwavable meals on wheels for lunch and dinner. Breakfast usually was a microwaved breakfast sandwich, maybe a cellophane-wrapped Svenhard's pastry from Costco. When my vegetable-hating ass is craving a tomato, so strongly that I am fantasizing about eating it like an apple or a peach. You know that the world is out of balance. Koyaanisqatsi, but with addicts. And cravings for green vegetables and sugar. Oh my God, sugar. I was eating packet after packet of sugar at 4:30 in the morning, sugar that I had hoarded carefully from the dining room because I couldn't stand not having sugar. And to my counselor, I said, you know, it's kind of funny. I never had much of a sweet tooth before, but now I can't stop eating sugar. It's weird. To me, my counselor said, that's normal. Your body is used to so much alcohol, and without that, the signal starts screaming for sugar. Your body wants it. Don't worry about that now. Just eat whatever you're craving eating. Which was a problem, because you don't get a choice of food in rehab. Because poor folks rehab ain't got no chef. Because poor folks. So I called my friend from a payphone, and to my friend I said, can you please bring me some spinach and some tomatoes, please, and some salad dressing and some of those huge 5-pound bags of candy? To me, my friend said, yes, of course. There was some consternation among the inmates of our little rehab because apparently it was not normal for people to get food deliveries from friends on the outside. There was some amusement among the staff in our rehab because apparently it was not normal for people to get food deliveries from friends on the outside. There was no rule against it, but the majority of participants in this program no longer had anyone who gave enough about them, who cared enough, who gave enough fucks to bring them a 5-pound bag of Jolly Rancher candies and organic heirloom tomatoes and a bag of locally grown organic spinach with a jar of chunky blue cheese dressing and a bag of assorted candies and a box of danishes that she added in just because she remembered that you liked them. Somehow I still managed to have people on the outside who cared enough to make sure I had sugar and actually nutritious vegetables. Because me asking for vegetables was enough to freak everybody out. So I got them, and I shared them. And from one of my fellow addicts who was a heroin and methamphetamine speedballer, recently out of prison, I learned how to make a Kool-Aid substitute by melting Jolly Rancher candies with hot water in a styrofoam cup. This was a skill set he picked up in prison. Of course, in prison, they would also make their own booze. I told him, quite proud, that I knew that prison booze was called Pruno. Thank you, National Public Radio, for that little fact. But since this was rehab, he was not making Pruno. He was just making the Jolly Rancher candy-flavored grape drink. I ain't gonna lie, it was pretty good, actually. I was craving sweets so badly, I brought 2 cheese danishes with me from the dining room, figuring I would eat them later at snack time, but this was apparently a massive violation of the rules, and someone, another addict, was not too cool with my choices. I don't know who the fuck you think you are, but we have rules up in here. And there is an order that you need to follow, young lady. You can't just walk up in here anytime you want and take shit out the kitchen. What if someone who followed the rules wanted that, and you took it and hoarded it in your room, which is against the fucking rules, man? You ain't special. Get that narrative out your head where you are so fucking special, you can do whatever the fuck you want. You gotta follow the rules, and the rules say food gets left in the kitchen. This ain't no joke. It is shit like this that will lead you to relapse. This ain't the streets. This is rehab, man, and I best not catch you stealing. Yeah, I fucking said it. Stealing food from the kitchen again, because I will report your ass. I don't give a fuck who you think you are. This is rehab. While I was in rehab, I discovered that addicts do not share a common interest in television programming. I had this crazy idea that everybody loved cartoons. And so when I suggested that we watch Finding Nemo on movie night, several of the men laughed in my face. I'm not sure what happened to my face as a result of these people laughing in my face, but several of them, hardcore addicts and convicts, several of them felt so guilty afterwards that they came up to me and apologized. I tried not to cry. I don't like being laughed at. Furthermore, Finding Nemo is awesome as fuck, so fuck you guys, really. I refused to permit a consensus vote on watching these movies that these other guys wanted to watch, these violent, brutal gore fests. But the one thing that we all agreed on, weirdly enough, was the deadliest catch. Do you guys even have that here? The deadliest catch? The deadliest catch is a reality television show. It's about a bunch of men in boats on the Bering Sea catching crabs. That's it. That's the whole fucking show. I'm not even lying to you. But you know what? We watched the shit out of that program. We would take bets on which boat was gonna catch the most crab this episode, laughing our asses off when someone got chewed out by a boat captain, all nodding in empathy when one of the captains turned out to be an addict and alcoholic, just like us. Fascinated by these crabs waving their ancient arms in a futile struggle against their inevitable trip to the dinner tables of the world. I wish that I had some wisdom about why this was the one show that brought together all the stoners, drunkies, alkies, boozers, and trash can humans. I can't tell you, but it did. That fucking show brought us all together. And my night sweats became less. And my eyes became oddly swollen. I developed bilateral bulges within my eyelids. Chalazion, they're called, said the nurse. They had the effect of giving me a mongoloid eye fold, which I wasn't entirely sad about because I thought that made me look kind of exotic. The nurse said it was very standard for a detoxifying body to have various issues, and she said she had seen these types of cysts before, but I've never seen them so balanced. They actually look kind of flattering on you. That's right. I can make even eye cysts look good. And the days passed, and we went to meetings, and we talked about our fucked up lives, and I marveled as 3 days sober became 10, and I was amazed when I woke up and I had not pissed on myself in a drunken stupor. And one of my fellow addicts had really bad seizures, 2 times. Seizures that took him out of rehab and to the hospital twice. One of the other guys had seizures too, but he jumped out of a window, climbed down the tree, and ran away. But just to the park. And then he came back. And since he hadn't used and was still sober, they let him come back into the program. Only now everyone started calling him Spider-Man. Everyone except me, because I thought, that's not accurate. Spider-Man would have climbed down the wall, not used the tree. And I marveled as 10 days sober became 15, and the routine went on, and I made my bed every morning, and I crept into bed every night, and she came for me. The demon, Bubbles, she'd said her name was. And she whispered, and she howled sometimes. She told me she knew better how to protect us. She said we would feel better if we drank. And I suspected she was lying. But I didn't know how to fight her. And I didn't know how to shut her up. And I didn't know if we could live together. And I didn't know if I was sane. And I marveled as 15 days sober became 21. The day I walked out of rehab, I was alone, but but alone. I had hoped that one of my friends, some of my friends, somebody would have come to pick me up, to walk me out, to help me home, but everyone was working, busy, having lives to live, living like I hoped to someday. But I didn't really have much hope, We did not have a very good prognosis. We had been reminded over and over again how low were our chances of staying sober, and I was petrified because on that sunny day, clear blue skies, even the fog bank that usually hovered over Twin Peaks, cloying like a lover lingering over a late brunch, even the fog had slid silently back to sea. And it was a beautiful day to leave rehab. One day early, because I had a volunteer job to help a friend, and I did not want to disappoint them. So I left. I packed up my suitcases and my bags and packed them all up, and I was too broke to take a cab. And really, the walk from the rehab to my flat was not too long. Not really. And I was not alone. Not really. Because she was there that day. Even in bright sunlight, just out of the reach of my eyes, flirting with peripheral vision, lurking in the aftermath of a glance, but she was there. I could feel her. Smell her sometimes, smelling of hot dust and hatred, stinking of fear and rage, and always with her smile, always ready to go back and find the drink always. So we walked out with my certificate showing that we had completed the program without much hope, and walked down Gough Street, the beast to my left, across Market Street, my bag rolling and tripping over the divots left in the street from the cable car tracks, her ragged paws not missing a beat, across weird little McCoppin Street with the beast on my right, under the 101 freeway flyover, a homeless encampment, bird shit everywhere. And suddenly she is alert. And I am too, because a man is approaching me, intent on speaking. I have nothing to give and nothing to take, and he walks right up to me and stands right in front of me, unzipping a huge duffel bag, gazing expectantly at me. Another street vendor. But today, he is not selling bootleg DVDs. Today, he is not selling bundles of socks or underwear. Today, he is not trying to sell me jewelry or perfume. Today, he has, just for me, such a deal. Gilded boxes, box after box of high-end booze. He hefts one out. The shimmering box is a beacon of gorgeous marketing and flawless packaging with a payload that, for me, is death. I stopped dead in my tracks. I stopped and rewound back to my childhood growing up in New York City, where people came up to you on the street to sell you everything, and I mean everything. I thought about growing up in Harlem, moving to Brooklyn, moving to Yonkers, living in Queens. I thought about leaving New York and moving to Los Angeles. I thought about living in Hollywood. I thought about living in Eagle Rock. I remembered moving from Southern California to Northern California to the Bay Area and living in the Mission District in the San Francisco Bay. And I thought to myself, never in 38 years of existence, never once could I remember someone coming up to me on the street to sell me alcohol. I had to ignore the whining from just beyond the periphery of my vision, the quicksilver gleam of a clawed paw swiping at this man's bag as she, the demon, Bubbles. That one? Bubbles, she'd said her name was. And she is laughing because, wow, wasn't this amazing? We don't even have to embarrass ourselves going into a store where someone might know us. No, now nobody had to know. This nice man had the booze. Beautiful, beautiful. He had it. Just give him the money. He'll take anything, won't he? We have $28, don't we? Maybe we can get him to give us 3 bottles. Wouldn't that be sweet? Wouldn't it? I turned my head away from her, and the man was still in front of me. Got that Tanqueray number 10, sis. What you give me for that? He pulled the bottle, green and glassy, from the sleeve. It shone an emerald in the sun. And I cleared my throat. I'm sorry. I just got out of a detox. He paused. I think he was confused if this was a further incentive for making the sale or a deterrent against him making the sale. I just got out today, like a quarter of a mile back, you see. He smiled, confused. I watched the demon running circles around him, waiting for the drink. I laughed, probably crazily, and the salesman's smile faltered, and I said, I am 27 days sober, man, and this is funny. In my whole life, this is the first time anyone has tried to sell me booze on the street. And you know what the best part of this is? The best part? The best thing? Wait for it, because this is fucking hilarious. The best thing about this is, I hate gin. I hate it. Always have. Even when I was drinking, I would not drink fucking gin. And now that I can't, unless I risk death and oblivion at the teeth of that hyena right behind you, a hyena that you definitely cannot see, I'm gonna have to say no. Hell no. No, thank you. Because I have manners. At this point, he'd zipped up his bag and was well down the street. I emerged from the underpass back into the sun and kept walking. Huffing, angry, put off, enraged, she walks just behind me, out of sight with waves of reproach, so angry. As we passed store after store, who knew there were so many places to buy booze? So many. And at each one, her head turning, hopefully, maybe this one, maybe. But I had to prove that I could at least get home. Walking past the Zeitgeist, a bar where I'd spent many warm and many very chilly nights drinking and smoking on the back patio. Past R&L's pizza place, past Taqueria Pancho Villa, past 7 more places that would have been very happy to sell me a pint of Jack Daniels. Turning, once I spot Ria's Deli, finally home. Up the stairs, my cats, wary but loving. My house, my roommate, filling the house with marijuana smoke and resentment. My own rooms, spare and bare from the violence of house cleaning. And here I was, sober, in my own house, and alone and sober. I was alone, but alone, but never ever alone. Because I'd brought home a new friend. And I feel the depth of this sick. And you never know how it feels. And she thinks of nothing but drink. And I want to give up some days. And you only see what I tell. And she runs my will into ground. And I wake up, eyes stinging sweat. And you offer words from big books. And she shreds them all with big teeth. And I have no tears left to weep. And you never see her at all. And she waits for me to lose hope. And I will not